So I was watching a YouTube video regarding, gaming and all of this stuff, and usually I'll look through the comment section, and I saw somebody mention that this month they've only bought, a few games, and they had Elden Ring, which they said they hadn't finished it and they thought it was a boring open world game or something of that nature. Now, this was a very interesting statement that they made because, in my opinion, I think this is probably one of the things that, happens when it comes to individual tastes. But this person probably beat the first Elden Ring game. So for them to say that the open world is boring is a little weird to me. I think they probably, prefer a certain kind of game, or maybe we're looking for a specific kind of experience at the end of the day and never really did get it. Today, my video is basically to talk about how this game is a phenomenon that it even pushed people, to go buy a $40 version of the after game itself. When in reality, when we look at, say, the way gaming is going right now, the biggest thing that gaming lacks is innovation or creativity or being able to push the envelope or not necessarily make, apologies for your game design like the director here has done basically in the past few months or the past few weeks, in basically saying, this is how I want to make this game. I want to ensure that whenever we, come into the gameplay experience, that the player basically is facing the difficulty and the challenge, and it will make for the game an enjoyable experience. And I think that enjoyable experience, there's no way you don't feel it. So when you think about what a lot of the AAA publishers are going through right now, I think most of it is of their own doing. Most of them have basically created these video game, expectations for games to be directed towards everybody. There's no one who can have a problem with their game anymore. Whereas a game like Elden Ring, even though people have problems with it, it continues to basically solidify itself as the game that maybe you might not like. And to be honest, that's actually fine. You get what I mean? Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is gamers are going to eventually come around when it's time to actually buy another From Software Souls-like game. And you're going to remember the experience that that was fun for them, the experience that was interesting to them. When in reality, if you try to make your game for everybody, what happens at the end of the day is your game eventually becomes for no one. And so on the day that your game basically cannot find its target audience because it's now been watered down to a game that doesn't necessarily meet any target audience, it's now hard for you to be able to hit the mark because now that game is just, in a sense, for everyone, for everybody. One thing a lot of people are probably not really talking about when it comes to a lot of these other games, like if you look at them, some of the Ubisoft titles and even some of the, other publisher titles that are coming out that not a lot of people are really vibing with, is simply the fact that, a lot of these games don't necessarily seem to have catered to their audiences for the longest time. Even when they build new audiences, they didn't stick with those audiences to be able to harness and, kind of like cultivate a good relationship with them. And games that I'm basically, pointing at are some of the established franchises. Assassin's Creed, The Last of Us, Uncharted. These games are basically facing a lot of challenges. Even the Marvel Spider-Man 2 game was very interesting because, with all of the, in my opinion anyways, all the fanfare that Spider-Man had, it was supposed to be a console pusher, but it didn't necessarily get the job done like, say, the previous Spider-Man game. So this is, in my opinion, what I think has made Elden Ring basically stand out above, a lot of other games in the way that it works. I mean, I've been playing it. I've been enjoying myself. It's not been an easy journey, but I shouldn't say it hasn't been an easy journey. I have to be honest. Once you do everything the way you're supposed to do it, you get your Shad Tree blessings and you level up and you do everything that you're supposed to do. I don't necessarily think the game is going to, behoove you. And there are so many methodologies on how you basically can, take on the game in that regard. I think that's another thing a lot of people basically don't, pay attention to, is how much, is available for you as the player to be able to enjoy from the game and to be able to make the game simple for you. You can basically simplify the entire game at the end of the day. So, these are just my opinions anyways about, this whole thing. When I'm looking at a lot of these video games and thinking how they're not solidifying their own user base, I'm wondering, man, why are they abandoning their user bases? Why are they not necessarily harnessing what's going on? And at the end of the day, what happens is, they face these financial difficulties that's of their own doing, whereas the other, folk can literally, enjoy that harnessing of their communities. I mean, we can make the comparison back and forth with games like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. I mean, there are all kinds of circumstances. It's not like somebody wants to sit here and talk about how, this is a good thing. It's not a good thing for people to lose their jobs. We just recently saw that the developers at, Mortal Kombat Mobile basically are getting shut down. That's insane. That's like, that's wild. That's something that, was happening. When Mortal Kombat is basically a 30-year franchise, it should have enough of an audience that can keep it sustainable. Perhaps it didn't need a mobile game at the end of the day. Perhaps it needed to be straightforward as a video game, that was basically investing all of the efforts of the developers into making a solid game, because even till now, Mortal Kombat 1 is a game that is basically not yet finished in a sense. Like, a lot of features to that game came later on. It wasn't a smooth transition. It was not a smooth release. And, a lot of that, manpower and a lot of that, expertise could have definitely been used, in my opinion anyways, in focusing just on the game and bringing out a polished experience compared to, say, Street Fighter, where they took the time to do just that. And that game basically had, in my opinion, a stronger release, a stronger launch, and is going to have a stronger longevity. I mean, think about, if you follow the fighting game scene, you would have heard the news. Evo registrations for Mortal Kombat are abysmal compared to a game like Street Fighter. Mortal Kombat may have sold more than Street Fighter, but Street Fighter basically has a solid setup because it's appealing to its core audience. Yes, it's doing a few things to make itself, have a slightly broader appeal, but I've realized that even the slightly broader appeal doesn't even make too much of a difference, which was what I thought was, the modern controls and all that stuff. I mean, that's not the crazy thing about modern controls is, you would have thought that this was supposed to make the game simpler, but it just adds another layer of complexity for even all the players to start rethinking how they play the game. And even the casual players, who you would think it was designed for, are more than likely not even using it as much. It's the professional players that are experimenting with it or figuring out how they can actually deal against it, if you get what I mean. But all of this talk, just to say that Elden Ring really, surpasses the expectations and is doing everything opposite to what AAA companies, other AAA publishers and developers are basically doing with their games. And for some strange reason, it's just very successful doing that. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.